Okay, so I think we should get started, and as people start joining us, we can fill them in either later or I think they will be able to catch on. So, first of all, thank you all for being here. I'm Tammy from Matueté, for those who haven't been in touch with me and don't know what I sound like. It's a real pleasure to be able to talk about a destination that we are so passionate about and probably one of the most important to us. And when I say us, it's not just Matuete, but um, I think for the planet in general. And we are trying to build more awareness around this area, and not by accident. Our recently launched website is called Amazonia by Matuete instead of the Amazon by Matuete. We wanted to bring this regional aspect to it and um, help bring the awareness and understanding of what the Brazilian Amazon especially represents in this scenario. So, starting with the website specifically, I invite you all to access it after the webinar. Right now, you should be able to see it on my screen, and I will walk you through it, through the different areas of it. Um, there is a tab called Travel Agent, to which you can subscribe, you can sign in. For every request that we get, we have to give you permission to access the website. So I'll log in here with one of my colleagues' information just to show you what it looks like. So this is the area where you get to download all of our material that is available on the website. And that's why we'll only grant access to it to yourselves, to our partners that we trust with this type of material. And if you need more images or more information, you can feel free to contact us directly. So, for example, if you click on the Negro River itinerary, it'll take you to a SharePoint website with this link where you can easily download any file that you need or want. Or even copy the link and share it with your client. Everything here on the website is unbranded, so you can share it directly with your clients if you wish. Um, so the website was launched, like I said, very recently, a couple of weeks ago, and if you find any information that you know to be wrong or anything that we haven't noticed, please do let us know. Um, every time that we look at it, we see something that can be improved, and so we are counting on our great partners to keep us informed on this as well. Now we'll follow first the logic of the website and the order where how it was built. But before we go into each specifically section, I wanted to open up this map, which is the very first idea that we would like to convey to you as to the main differences between the Brazilian Amazon and the Peruvian or Equatorian Amazon, and the different regions we explore in Brazil, the two different areas, and what this represents. So a satellite image is the best way to do this, and I hope you can follow me here. Um, Here where my mouse cursor is right now, we have Iquitos, from where you have the departure of famous Peruvian Amazonian tours such as the Aqua, for example. And what we like to explain is, coming here from Iquitos, you can see that the water on the rivers that are born not here but in the Andes Mountains, but where the aqua cruises, for example, they're this brownish color, very murky waters, and they follow all the way into Brazil. Here, where you have the pointer is Manaus, which is already the Brazilian Amazon, and when you zoom in this region, you will see that this is a black water river. This is the Negro River specifically. So what does this mean in terms of difference in experience? In the murky water rivers is where you find more life present. So we're talking about a bit more mosquitoes. We're talking about even the wildlife in general, reptiles, more monkeys, more fish, piranhas, what have you. So we in no way mean to say that one is better than the other. To the contrary, they are complementary experiences. But we know that in the Brazilian Amazon, you get to interact with nature a lot more than you get to do in the Peruvian Amazon, where you get to contemplate a lot more. Um, this essentially means that in this area that we cruise here in the Negro River, what you won't see a lot of animals. There's not incidents of wildlife, and this is something crucial that we like to explain to set the right expectation for people who are visiting the Brazilian Amazon. At the same time, you get to swim almost all the time because since there's no life, there are no any dangerous animals in the waters, and you get to cool off and interact and be a part of nature much more. And why is it that the color of the river changes and there's no life to it? It has a very cool geographic explanation that I can tell the people who are more interested in later after the webinar. But in more basic terms, the water pH on these rivers is very acid and it doesn't favor for any life to reproduce. You don't have the basis for life, which are pretty much mosquitoes, and for anything else, pretty much to reproduce as from the very basis. So just to help bring it to life, as I said, the regions that we're going to cover today in the Brazilian Amazon and the regions that we explore. First, the Negro River, and the main city near the Negro River is called Manaus, which some of you probably have heard about. And when we zoom in a bit more, here you have the Anavilhanas Archipelago, which is the largest river archipelago in the world, and where the two lodges that we work with in the Amazon are also based here near this village called Novo Airão. And you can imagine how much we can do in such a place, right? It looks like a river maze, and it really is. And all of these tributaries have different aspects to it and different communities and different impacts of the river water levels to them, which we'll get into a bit later. Coming out of Manaus and this region of the Amazon, the other region that we explore is right here to your right. It's called Santarém, the nearest town, not as developed and as interesting as Manaus. But what is interesting to see is on the satellite image how you can tell the difference between the murky water rivers that we spoke about first, the black water rivers, and this, which is the only blue water river of the entire Amazon. It's called the Tapajós River. From here, you also have tributaries that have black waters. You also have the murky waters. So it's in this region where you can explore all three Amazonian ecosystem in one same place. Unfortunately, or fortunately for us, tourism hasn't yet developed in this region, and so there are no quality hotels or lodges yet in this place, and therefore the only way we explore it is by doing a private yacht charter. And so far we only have one yacht that we work with, and I'll show it to you later into the presentation. If you have any questions or if you have any difficulties or anything, please let me know. I'll be checking the group if I get any notifications, okay? So while I have the map here and the satellite, here near Manaus is where you can see you have the famous meeting of the waters. Sorry, I'm getting a message here. Oh, sure, to spell the name of the rivers? Absolutely. After the presentation, Dana, if you don't mind, I can send it to you in an email. But if you go on our website, both these rivers will be here. It's the Negro River, you see here, and then the Tapajós. and if you need the correct spelling of them, they will be here and in our material, which you can download. But I can send you a follow-up email with this information as well. And as I was saying, here's where you have the famous meeting of the waters, where the rivers. Sure, thank you, Priscilla and Eric. To Fogilândia, I'll get to that after we're done. I promise I won't forget you. Um, so the meeting of the waters that we have from here, where these two different types of waters they meet but they never mix, and that goes for miles at a time. And what's interesting about this place is that they run at different speeds, they have different temperatures, not only they're different colors. And there are two main ways to see this phenomenon and to experience it. And I'll tell you about it right now as we go into the actual website. So when you get to amazoniabymatueté.com, this is the homepage. There is a very interesting quote by Martin, which you can see later. And then in the very first tab, you have the Amazon, and then you have three different categories to them. First one being Manaus. So you have a brief explanation of the city. You have a picture of the Opera House, which still works until this day. The schedule for the Opera House, unfortunately, is only released the very month of, or a couple weeks before any presentations happen. So we can't plan too much in advance, but we have in our radar every time we have people staying in Manaus to check what the schedule is and bring them into the Opera House to watch a concert or whatever program they're displaying there. They're usually free, so if clients want to go independently, that also works, but it's important that you know that this is an operating place to this day. So why would someone stay in Manaus and not go straight to the Amazon? The time of arrival for flights into Manaus is usually a bit later. And for those of you who have USA market base, so North American market base, something very interesting and which doesn't occur to lots of agents is that it's faster to get from Miami to LA or to Manaus than from Miami to LA. So you have a direct daily flight with American Airlines. It takes 6 hours, and because you don't need a connection or anything, from the States, it's easy to plan a quick escapade to the Amazon. If you have clients looking for a Thanksgiving trip or a long weekend, even for 3 to 4 nights, you can already have a worthy Amazonian experience and not having to travel too far for it. So it's good to keep that in mind. And for those arriving in Manaus very late in the evening, when you're doing a boat experience, a yacht experience, you could board the yacht directly and you don't need an overnight in Manaus. But on the way back, if you're taking a nighttime flight, it's still worth taking a tour of the city, which could be very interesting. Not only you have the Opera House, but you have a local market. This tour doesn't take more than half a day, but understanding the rubber extraction and the rubber era of Manaus, which was the economical peak of the place, and how this is the biggest, the largest gateway to the Amazon, and how the city is composed, and how the economic cycles have changed, it could be quite interesting and very complementary to the nature experience one is about to have. In Manaus, there's one hotel we work with. It's called Vila Amazonia, and it's by the same owners as Anavilhana's Lodge, which is one of the two options of lodges that we work with in the Amazon. So it's a boutique hotel. They only have 32 rooms, so it's a very small place, but for an overnight in the city, it works out perfectly. And they're right around the corner from the Opera House, right in the city center, so it has a very convenient location. Like I was saying, from Manaus, there are a few things that you can do to experience it. And there is the Seringal Museum, which tells the rubber economic cycle of Manaus. and a visit to the pink dolphins to feed them or watch them being fed. This is something that we like to explain very carefully, that there are a few options of touring such as this outside of Manaus. We, of course, only bring clients to them when it's specifically asked for, and to one of them that we know is abiding to the necessary regulations for ecotourism and such. So it's something very aware. And unless clients ask specifically for this, we would prefer and advise for them to uh, see the pink dolphins out in nature, because they will 99% of times will have a chance to see them swimming along the rivers and such. Other than that, there are two other experiences, and both of them are related to the meeting of the waters I just mentioned. One is to take a speedboat out to a place where the rivers start meeting. And this is fun because you can get to put your hands inside the water and have an explanation about it, but it's something very quick, and there's not much of an adding to it. You will listen to the same explanations that you would if you were to do this in an overflight, which is our next topic, but you get to interact with the river a bit more, so it can be fun for a certain type of client. And last but not least, the panoramic flight. As you can see from this picture, this is an amphibious Grand Caravan, so it's a 9-seater. Very convenient, and it's been adapted to land on the river or, of course, inland. We highly advise considering the panoramic flight, not only to see the meeting of the waters and having a better perspective, but also the forest seen from above, and for you to either, or for clients to either get in or out of their lodge or their boat. This way they cut a transfer time and they add an experience to it. So it's definitely something that we highly recommend. Going back to the Negro River, I'll start by saying that there are two main ways to explore the Amazon, and this is something crucial to understand. One of them is lodge based, and like I mentioned, going back here in the map for those who didn't catch this before, there are only two lodges we work with outside of this region. Both of them are located outside Novo Airão, this village, and they're called Anavilhanas Lodge or Mirante do Gavião. And if you need the spelling of them, they're here in our website as well. We have the hotel options. And both of them worked really well. For the sake of something to educate you in this webinar, the main difference about them is that Anavilhanas is located only 5 minutes away from Mirante, but it's in an area of the village where you don't have to reach the village to get there. So you feel like you're outside in the jungle much more than you do at Mirante. You feel like you're more remote. Whereas Mirante do Gavião, you actually have to go into the village and then make a left and a right, and it feels like you're in a neighborhood of it. Please allow me a couple of minutes, just a second. Sorry about that, technical difficulties on my side. So as I was saying, that's the main difference about them, and something that we like to set the expectations well. Although they're very close by geographically, the impression that you have is that you're not as remote inside Mirante. Um, One of the highlights at Mirante do Gavião is their food. Of course, our clients don't get to compare both of them, right? They either go to one or the other, but it's important that you know to set the right expectations, that Anavilhanas often gets a feedback that the food is very basic, starting that it's a buffet style, while Mirante do Gavião is a la carte, and they have invested in bringing a very good chef to the hotel. So they always get praised in that, while Anavilhanas gets a bit of a rough feedback. For the experience in itself, they're very similar. It's a fixed package. It starts with 2 nights and can go up to 6 nights. And when guests get to the hotel, they're given their schedule for the next few days. And the activities include community visiting, um, canoeing through the flooded forest, searching for pink dolphins out in nature, a couple of tracks in the jungle as well. They can go canoeing themselves, so clients can actually paddle themselves, and so on and so forth. There are a list of activities in both of their websites that can be easily checked. So the advantage of doing a lodge first is that it's, of course, a more experience than chartering your own yacht. And for as an agent, you don't need to worry about it much because it's a fixed schedule, like we mentioned, and it's an easy sell, I would say. But what changes is that your experience is limited to the area where they're based in. You have to go from point A to B and back to A. Even in longer packages, you have the limitations of how far a boat can go up that river, and when the sun sets, it needs to come back to its base. And I think that's the one of the greatest advantages of having a yacht charter experience in the Amazon is that we get to go a bit further upriver. After, if you see here on this map that I have now, you have Novairão here, for example, and then you have another spot right up there, which is only possible to be reached in a charter experience, in a yacht charter experience. And that is because we're cruising upriver and we're never stopping and sleeping in the same place twice. Not only that, but clients get to go to places that are not regularly visited by travelers, by other clients, by other travelers. So they get to see places that are more authentic, that are more in touch with the place, and just overall, it changes um, the concept of the experience entirely. Um, like I said, it's not for everyone, I understand. But yes, Alex, we can privatize the excursions. So getting into what we do differently in the Amazon. Um, Here on the Amazonia by Matueté, you will have our portfolio of yachts. And what's key to understand this experience is that we don't do regular departures. We only do them on a private basis. We staff all of these yachts with people from our team. In some of them, when needed, we change the bed linen. All the food and beverage shopping, we do them ourselves based on a questionnaire that is answered by your clients with their preferences and restrictions. So we get that and build a menu and do the shopping for them based on that, and stock the boat with everything that they like. And we are the ones who have designed the itinerary to go with these excursions. So even in the places that we're cruising around the Anavilhanas archipelago, for example, we try and go places where the hotels don't visit. So your client has the feeling that there is no one else out there in this region. And this is very easily done considering how big of a place this is. Um, Before we get into the actual portfolio of yachts to show you, I just wanted to let you know that we have 3 sample itineraries here, and this goes to say that our minimum recommended time to be spent here is 3 nights. That's why we start with this. Um, and this is because with less than 3 nights, you don't get to go that far away from the city as you would like for it to start getting really special. So a 3 night experience is the very minimum for clients to start getting in touch with this place. And although here we have 4 and 5 nights, we also have itineraries for 6 or 7 nights, which are um, ready to be sent to you if you have the interest. Of course, these are more dedicated to those with a more deep interest and sometimes more knowledgeable in such a region. But we have done this in the past quite a few times, and there has never been a complaint that it's been too long. Um, as far as the experience goes, there are two other things that we do differently from the lodges and that are only possible in this region of the Amazon, in the Negro River region. And those are a tree climbing experience, and where you actually ascend with ropes to the canopy of the trees and can see the forest from even another perspective still. And the other one, which is one of my favorites, is a jungle survival technique course. It may sound a bit more rough than it actually is, but what this is basically, we bring clients out to a specific place of the forest where they will be met by former officers of the Brazilian army who were all specialized in this region of the Amazon, and with them and one of our staff, of course, they will build shelter. They will learn how to make fire. They will learn how to set things that are edible from what's not. Um, and this can go from a 4 hour experience where we can do roasted fish type of lunch out in the forest, up to an overnight for those who are more adventurous and who are really keen in having this type of experience uh, inside the jungle. And again, to remind you, since there are no mosquitoes, it's important to remember that this is not an uncomfortable experience in that sense, at least, as most people would think. Um, so these are two of the things that are not available in a lodge-based experience. But again, the communities that we visit are different ones, and we have the flexibility of adapting the itinerary to clients' wishes. Thanks, Dana, for correcting it. We'll look right into it for Yacht 7. You're right. Um, just going back to the website here and what's possible to be done, something that a lot of people don't expect is that here on this picture, on the 5 night itinerary, you will see a small kayak here, well, small compared to the immensity of the river, but at certain times of the year, when you have the lower water levels, it's possible to reach these amazing river beaches along the river. So, in a boat, in a private yacht charter experience, if clients want to spend just a full day enjoying stand-up paddling or kayaking, canoeing, and having a very much of a beach experience, but inside the Amazon, they can do so if they wish to. And this is an unexpected environment to find in such a region for those who don't know that that's possible. In the Negro River, this is what a beach would look like, and the water is pretty much a Coca-Cola type of color to it. But in the Tapajós River, they're really crystalline waters, and I'll show you a few pictures of it soon. Getting into the yacht portfolio, as we mentioned, uh, Dana contributed here with us talking about Yacht 7, which says that it fits 10 people, but it doesn't. You're right, Dana. There are actually 3 cabins, but we only use 2 of them for clients, since the third one has to be for staff. But I won't get into each one of these yachts and their specifications. This is more to say that we have different levels and different styles of yachts that you can have a look at later after the webinar. So from mega yachts, which are Mediterranean style of boats, and for a certain crowd they are appealing, to more regional looking boats such as this one, such as Yacht 4 or even Yacht 7. What we are lacking right now is an intermediary option, and we are aware of that. But like I said, each one of these boats we have inspected, we have tested, we have done at least one trip with each one of them to make sure that they're worth incorporating into our portfolio. And so scouting these options does take some time, and we have been looking for an intermediary option for a while now, but so far it hasn't been all that easy. But Yacht 6, for example, has 9 cabins. Yacht 1 has 6 cabins, while Yacht 4 has 4 cabins, and Yacht 7 has 2 cabins. So for different sizes of groups and of course different budgets, we can try and cater to your requests. In order to try and make this easier for you, we have priced these experiences, these yachts, in one fixed price, either per day or per night, depending on the boat. And these costs will include everything from staff, fuel, food and beverage, activities, and so on. For example, Yacht 1 costs $21,000 per night net and includes everything except for the hydroplane flight, while Yacht 7 costs $3,000 net per night, and that's outside peak seasons, such as you did, Dana. And also includes everything except for the tree climbing, the jungle survival, and of course the hydroplane. The reason why we separated these two activities in boats that are less expensive is because those are costs per person that do make a difference when the boat cost isn't the most significant part of the trip. So of course we'll instruct you for that at any given request, but just to give you an idea of cost for the time being. I'll move along to the Tapajós. If you have any questions, please type them here, and I'll be looking at them as we move along or at the end of the. I'm not forgetting about the Fordilândia question, Eric. No worries. So getting into the Tapajós River experience and what the differences are. First, I'd like to stop at this picture first to show you what this looks like, and there is no Photoshop, there is no magic here. Honestly, this is really what it looks like, and I love showing this picture to people and asking them where they think this is in Brazil. Never once have I heard the Amazon, which comes to say that it is a place that still surprises people that it even exists. It goes against what most people imagine of the Amazon, and I think we all have that type of client that says, I want to be the first one of my group of friends to find out about a new place. Well, this is definitely that new place. I don't know about all of you, but myself personally, I don't like when people play a video and just let me watch it during this type of trainings. So I won't play this for you right now, but I invite you to have a look at it. It's a 2-minute video, and it shows a bit more of the region and what we do there, some of the water sports that are available. And here we have the itineraries for the Tapajós. I wanted to bring your attention to the fact that we start with a 4-night itinerary in the Tapajós instead of 3. And this is because, fortunately, to the preservation of this place, Santarém is a bit harder to reach than Manaus. There are not many direct flights that get there, only from 2 places, which are Manaus and Belém. And the flights are usually at nighttime. They arrive at 3 in the morning. So we are very frank about the fact that it hasn't been a place that is easy to reach. And this is something recent. It changed about 5 years ago. The air flights, the air schedule to Santarém changed a lot. But we do like to stress how much it is worth the effort to get there. Once you're there, everyone happens to agree with us. I'm taking this chance to go into an itinerary, but stop here to show you the yacht that we have there. Like I mentioned, it's the only option that we have so far, but this is one of my favorite yachts in the portfolio. This is a five cabin yacht, and although it's very regional looking, it has a very good size to it. It doesn't feel crowded at any times. It's very spacious inside. It's all wooden decor inside, so it's not at all tacky, and it's very well maintained. And this is one of the very first yachts that we have started operating. It's not available for charters through anyone else. We are personal friends with the owner, and we are the only people she rents it out to. So the staff is very familiar to us, and we know from experience that this is one of the things that can make a trip really special. It's the people you encounter as well. So I can't stress enough how much I actually really do love this option, and I think it's one of the best cost benefit relations we have in the portfolio. In a five cabin yacht, this one costs $4,100 net per night, again, all inclusive. Of course, for a couple, it might be a bit too much, but for a family, for example, it works out well when you divide the cost per cabin. Um, so, taking this chance to navigate you through the itinerary a little bit, every itinerary that you click on will have a little bit of text and a very cool picture to go with it. Very standard, but we wanted to include the name of places that clients would be visiting in case you or clients have the interest to research about it and see where it's located, and really understand that you won't be able to find much, and that's on purpose. That's for you to know that we want you to be able to know where you're going, but know that it's not a place very easy to reach, and there's nothing being done there already, at least not for mass tourism. Um, this is one of my favorite pictures, the piranha fishing experience. It's very easy to do. So, for example, kids love this because they're very easy to catch. And I know this because I've caught them myself. And trust me, if I can do it, anyone can do it. Um, there are tracks to see the giant trees. These are called sumaumas, which means the queen of the forest. And they have this name for a reason. This is one of the branches, right, of the tree, and it's one of six that it has. So I was there with nine other colleagues, and we were holding hands trying to get around it. We couldn't even get around the first branch or the first basis of it. So I think this is one of the most striking environments, and again, with the crystalline waters, the beach-looking scenario and environment that clients get once here is quite striking and unexpected. And this is what makes this one of our very favorite experiences, and still very much unknown to travelers, even inside Brazil, which is good for you to know. As far as time of the year to explore the Amazon, it's never a bad time, and we can't stress that enough. Uh, Regardless of when you get there, you will see it'll be striking. But if clients happen to go more than once, they will be able to vouch for what we say, that it's very interchangeable, and it's like two different places at different times of the year. So from around now in August uh, until January or February, we're starting to get into the dry season. The dry season refers to the rivers when the water level of the rivers is starting to lower. It doesn't mean that it's a dry season as far as the rain, because it's the Amazon forest. It's supposed to rain every day, and thankfully it still does. When the rain stops, that's when we know we're in trouble. Um, so from now in August up until February, we say it's the lower water level seasons, which is great for community visiting, for the beaches that we spoke about. And there's nothing that can't be done around this time or around the other time. So as from March until now in July, that's when the rivers are starting to fill up again from rainwater. And right now in July and until from mid-June until the end of July, so until right now, I was just there 2 weeks ago. That's the peak level of the rivers, right, of the water levels. So that's when the forest has more flooded areas, and it's quite interesting for you to be cruising around an area and you happen to look into the water and you see 4 or 5 meter trees that are fully submerged and have developed to learn how to be able to exist in this type of environment. They don't die because they're underwater, and then when the river dries again, they're still alive and they're still adapting to that environment. So it's a good time of the year to see that and have this kind of experience, and to canoe through the flooded forest. You can go further into these tributaries because they still have a lot of water to them. But at the same time, it's a time where it's a bit harder to find the river beaches. There are some permanent ones, but they're not our favorites. But like I said, there's not a bad time of the year to go. Um, Something that we always like to say is that a lot of people ask us what's the difference between the Amazon and, for example, the Pantanal. And I think the wildlife component is something that should stick with you very strongly. That you will not see a lot of animals in the Amazon. That's a myth. Whereas the Pantanal, that's where you go to see wildlife in Brazil. The Amazon is about feeling small in nature and remembering how thin of a balance is needed for you to be here and for that environment to be there and for life to exist and to be in balance still. And this is more along the lines of a personal comment. We do believe that the more people know that, the more we can spread this knowledge, the better protected we will be in terms of preservation. So that comes to say that this is why the Amazon is such an important and a dear region to us, and why it should be for anyone else out there in the world and for people who want to travel there especially. So that's what we wanted to share with you as far as the website and some of the region, some of what we do there. And I'll be taking questions now. I already have one from Eric, which I haven't forgotten. I promise, Eric. But just wanted to invite you all to type your messages and your questions here if you have one. So while Diana is typing, Eric asked about a place called Forgilândia, which I'll show you on the map. Um, just so you know, this place was, it's in the same state as Santarém. It's down the Tapajós River. Here you can see it. And Eric, we have done excursions here before, but it does take quite some time to cruise down here. So when we have the time and clients absolutely have this interest, we do. But this is a village where there used to be a factory, used to be one of the biggest production towns in the northern part of Brazil. And it's a very small village, of course, so it was quite a phenomenon. And there are abandoned houses and factories still there to be visited. Unfortunately, not as well preserved as we would like. So for people who have heard the story of Fordland, as it's as you would translate in English, we can arrange a tour there, but if it's not asked for, we don't mention it either because we don't think it's something unmissable, let's say. Okay, I'll follow the order of the questions. Dana, thanks for asking about Zika. And I especially love this question. And when it happened back in 2016, it was a very hard subject for us because people thought we were undermining it almost, and we weren't. So Zika was a reality in some areas of the country, and that was back in 2016, like I said, but in very focused areas, right? And we noticed that it came out to be a lot more about bad press than a reality. So nowadays, Zika hasn't been heard of since 2017, early 2017. So it hasn't been a concern to us at all. And one thing that we always like to say is that there are no mandatory vaccines to come into Brazil, which is in itself a very good statement as to any health concerns. Of course, for clients who want to be extra safe and take yellow fever shots, for example, which have very few counterindications, we don't have anything against it, of course, but there is nothing mandatory, and I'm very proud and happy to say that in over 15 years in operation, we haven't had any sort of cases related to that or any other diseases even. Yeah, Eric is mentioning that Fordland has a history in the automobile and rubber supply chain. And yes, like I said, it was one of the most important producers back in the day. But like I said, unless there's a specific interest for this, it's not something that we encourage to be visited. Great question, Eric, about indigenous villages and tribes. The answer, if we take clients there, the answer is no. And for two main reasons. First is that um, the villages, the indigenous villages that are near Manaus or even near Santarém are those who have already been impacted by uh, the um, how do I say this, by the white man lifestyle for throughout the years, and so it's nothing really authentic to be seen, and they have developed into being riverside communities more so than a tribe. Um, we have had in the past an indigenous related experience, but that was far off in Xingu, um, which is a completely different region and something that we only did for very specific requests that involved very hard logistics. It involved pulling of personal contacts, and for a few external reasons, we stopped doing it, and we are looking into developing this again. But in the Amazon, we do not. Unless clients specifically ask for it, and we can take them to communities which still keep some sort of indigenous related lifestyle so they can see it. We take them there, but by advising and setting this expectation right that it won't be something remote or something as authentic as we would like it to be. So it is possible, but it's not something built into the itinerary of right now. Yes, Alex. So the Amazon River is, of course, the junction of the Negro River with another river called the Solimões in that first area outside of Manaus. What happens is that at that time it becomes that murky, brownish water type of river. That's where you have mosquitoes, that's where you have piranhas, and that's where you can't interact with the river as much as we would like. So the communities, the fact that you're able to swim and so on, that's possible through the Tapajós and the Negro rivers and some smaller tributaries. but not the Amazon River, which is that murky water river that we saw on the satellite, which is why we don't visit that one specifically. Um, we do have a portion of the itineraries that we get close to a murky water river to do the piranha fishing that I mentioned to you, because it's a lot of fun. But like I said, it's very uncomfortable. As soon as you get near these rivers, you start feeling the presence of mosquitoes, which is one of the most uncomfortable things I think in a trip. So we do that. We of course warn travelers that we're about to go into that region so they can have repellent on and such. And we do that for the piranha fishing, and then we're out. Um, but yeah, no, that's why we don't visit the Amazon River itself. My pleasure. Any more questions or comments about the website or the presentation itself? Please feel free to email us and get in touch in any way. Thank you all so much for sitting through the webinar and for being a great crowd. Those were great questions. Dana, thanks so much for pointing out that one mistake in the website. It was great to see you here. Actually, it's been a while since we were in touch, and with all of you. I really appreciate your time and patience, and we are here to help settle any questions you may have. I do invite you to subscribe to our website, to the Amazonia by Matueté, so you can have access to our material. And again, as I said, if you see anything that we need to improve, please do let us know.